What do JF Kennedy, Charlie Chaplin, Salvador Dali, and Marlene Dietrich have in common? They are all amongst the long list of recognizable names that followed Anna Aslan's treatment, believed to slow down old age and prolong youth. Jorovital is called by some the grandmother of anti-aging medicine. But did this Romanian biologist and academic truly invent a miracle youth elixir? Or was all of this the mirage of a well marketed campaign that brought millions of dollars to the country and put communist Romania onto the global map during the Cold War? And what happened with it since its meteoric rise to fame in the 60s and 70s? I wanted to make this video for so long, since last summer to be precise, when I went into a local pharmacy here in Romania to pick up some medicine my mom was buying for her friend back home. And the pharmacist asked me if I'm from Republic of Moldova, which I didn't find odd in itself because we do have a pretty distinguishing accent. What surprised me was the reason he was asking, which was not the accent, but rather what I was picking up. The medicine we were getting being a treatment for various musculoskeletal disorders called Aflutop. Seeing my baffled face, he explained that it's people from Republic of Moldova that are the biggest market for that one as well as Gerovital. I told my mom about this when I got back and I asked her if she knows what Gerovital is. She didn't, so I turned to Google, which led me down an interesting rabbit hole that has stayed with me since and brought me to today and making this video. So let's start from the beginning. Anna Aslan, originally Aslanian, was born on 1st of January 1897 in Brăila, Romania, to Sofia and Margarit Aslan, or Mkirtic Aslanian, both intellectuals of Armenian origin, being the youngest of their four children. When she was 13, her father dies and her family moves to Bucharest. At 16, she dreams of becoming a pilot, even flying a small aircraft of the Bristol Quanda type. She then pivots and decides to become a doctor, some sources associating this with her father's premature death. Medicine was not a desirable field for women to enter, and her mother did not support her decision, also because of financial strains. So Anna goes on a hunger strike until her mother accepts her career choice, and she attends the Faculty of Medicine from 1915 to 1922. After graduating, she starts working with Daniel Danielopoulos, who supervised her doctoral thesis. She gets her MD degree in cardiovascular physiology in 1924, and her focus was on physiology and the process of aging. In 1949, she becomes the head of the physiology section at the Endocrinology Institute, which marks her beginning in gerontology. Surprisingly, not with an elderly patient though, as she decides to trial a treatment on a medicine student that was bedridden with a bout of arthrosis and unresponsive to any other treatment. Dr. Aslan reasoned that it may be possible to alleviate some of his suffering by injecting an anesthetic, procaine hydrochloride, directly into the joints. As the stories go, within minutes he was able to bend his knee and started feeling better. Now, procaine hydrochloride isn't new. It was first isolated back in 1905 by the Austrian biochemist Dr. Alfred Einhorn, and it's better known under its brand name, Novocaine. Novocaine, baby. As a local anesthetic, Novocaine acts as a sodium channel blocker to numb pain, though it is rarely used in modern dentistry because of its short duration, slow onset, and higher allergy risk when compared to more modern alternatives like lidocaine. Fun fact, if you're into nomenclatures like I am, Novocaine derives from the Latin meaning new cocaine, as it was developed to replace it, as the original one was, well, everything it still is, but mainly highly addictive. What Anna Aslan did was notice the, albeit short-lived, eutrophic effect of the substance, meaning rich in nutrients, as her patients started to show results that extended way beyond diminished pain and suffering. Some of her patients suffering from dementia or early senility started exhibiting more alertness and mental function. Patients that had arthritis were showing signs of their condition improving. Blood pressure where abnormal was normalizing. Patients were markedly less depressed, and general immunity levels were also increasing. Some bald men even started regrowing hair, gradually at first, but noticeable within a few months. And so her long term research started, conducting a large scale trial in a nursing home and highlighting the importance of procaine hydrochloride in the improvement of age related dystrophic disorders. She experiments with various concentrations and pH levels, which led to the creation of the Gerovital H3 molecule and the founding of the first geriatric institute in the world in 1952. Dr. Aslan's colleagues were ecstatic about the findings and collated all of them together in a collective report. On 5th of September 1956, 500 physicians representing 13 different countries assembled together at the prestigious Gerontological Congress in Karlsruhe, Germany. Romania's representative, Dr. Anna Aslan, presented the paper entitled Treatment with Gerovital Applied to Aged People. The audience of highly regarded professionals from all fields of medicine listened in shocked silence. What happened next depends on what source you choose to believe. This Gerovital pamphlet, dating to 1973, claims that their shocked silence soon turned to cheers and applause as she finished her speech with a video case study of a 90-year-old mathematician that in less than a year of GH3 treatment turned from a vegetable-like state back to writing poems, reading newspapers, walking up the stairs, and even pestering staff physicians to let him go on an exciting holiday. But Christopher Herzog, in his book, says that the delegate's astonishment quickly turned to skepticism as she continued to describe her findings and even regarded them as anecdotal. This was because the trials were considered to not have been conducted properly, meaning they did not include a population placed on a placebo to test against. In fact, she left the conference early, visibly upset, and returned to Bucharest as fast as she could. Here, she reported to Professor Parhon, her higher up, who, due to his position, was able to really help her put GH3 properly on the map. He authorized the setting up of one of the largest double-blind medical trials for any product of the 20th century, involving some 15,000 of the working and retired population. GH3 was administered to half that number and placebo to the other half. No one knew who was receiving what. For 2 years, 400 doctors and co-workers assimilated all the data across 144 hospitals and facilities all around the country and put it all together, collating it and analyzing it. And at the end of that period, results were checked and then released. This time, there could be no accusations of anecdotal findings. Everything had been properly carried out and recorded according to the established medical protocols. One of the most remarkable findings was related to the influenza epidemic, which was sweeping across Europe at the time of the trials. Resultant deaths were widespread across many countries, but at least in Romania, valuable statistical evidence was obtainable. The death rate from that particular strain of flu was 2.7% for those on GH3 compared to 13.9% of the general population or those on placebo. That figure alone indicates 500% more protection was afforded to people that were on the Gerovital H3 treatment. It was also found that workers took 40% less time off due to sickness. Respiratory conditions have improved, low and high blood pressure normalized, depression was alleviated, arthritic patients were showing a marked sign of improvement, muscular vigor was better, the list seemed almost endless. Yet it had to be stressed out that Gerovital is certainly not a cure-all. Yet publicity flowed, and from 1958, GH3 starts being mass produced and available in pharmacies. Orders from all across the world start flooding in. But before we jump into Gerovital's fame abroad, a quick dive into what exactly is GH3, because I'm a bit of a science nerd and I like to know how everything works. But if that's not really your thing, you can skip to this timestamp and I'll just see you there. As mentioned before, Gerovital H3 is basically procaine hydrochloride. The challenge was in stabilizing it, as in its original form, procaine hydrolyzes into its two constituent active ingredients, para-aminobenzoic acid and diethylaminoethanol, very quickly, in about 30 minutes and definitely under an hour, which is far from enough to allow these components to reach the needed cells, tissues, and organs in the body and achieve their full potential effect. By decreasing the pH levels to 3.3 from the original 4.5, as well as adding some stabilizing agents such as potassium salts, benzoic and glutamic acids, which also acted as additional antioxidants, Ana Aslan managed to increase the lifespan in the body of the new molecule to around 6 to 8 hours, giving it way more time to reach further into one's system. And even so, the recommended Gerovital H3 treatment still included several doses across a recommended couple of weeks. According to some sources I found, GABA plays an important role in the body, in the production of red blood cells as well as protein metabolism. And by acting in the intestine, it helps the production of various helpful compounds such as folic and pantothenic acids, vitamins K and B1, and thiamine. And a lack of GABA can lead to depression, irritability, digestive disorders, fatigue, headaches, graying hair, and even impotency or infertility. DEAE is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. This is what gave Gerovital its antidepressant claims, monoamine oxidase being an enzyme responsible for the degradation of monoamine neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin that give us our happy hormones, and norepinephrine, which makes us more alert. DEAE is a selective inhibitor, meaning it still allows small amounts of MAO to be produced when needed, as opposed to a blocker, which cuts off MAO secretion altogether and can lead to serious side effects since the body still needs some of it. However, I just want to put a huge disclaimer on all of that because some more modern sources are calling all of it just typical 20th century pseudoscience, pointing out that there isn't such a thing as a PABA deficiency really, and that the DAE role as an MAO inhibitor doesn't have enough solid evidence. So, what do you think? What do you think? Meow. Okay, understood. Well, even back then, despite its domestic and international popularity, having been patented in more than 30 countries, the claimed effects of Gerovital were not universally recognized. The FDA has never included it in its approved list of substances, despite many attempts to get it through the line. The main way Gerovital spread abroad was initially through Ana Aslan herself, who would pack hundreds and even thousands of samples when traveling to different conferences and administer it to fellow practitioners, which to me seems like a sign of someone confident in their product. These would have been produced in their own institute before mass production started. That's until Romania's government caught on with how much of a lucrative business this could be, receiving offers of $1 per vial, which converted to today is around $11, and that's per one vial, of which at least 46 were needed to complete a treatment. So, this is when they started mass producing it and catering to this global demand. In Romania, due to the socialist regime, all the profits were banked directly by the government. In the States, it was a very different story. So, getting GH3 approved for trading there was thought to be a gold mine. The first person to attempt to cash this in was Dr. Alfred Saps, who, alongside Manfred Mosk, another Romanian American, founded Roma Mer Pharmaceuticals Ltd in 1970. After some negotiations in Bucharest, they are granted exclusive rights of trading and distributing Gerovital in the United States. 2 years later, they start the process of getting Gerovital approved by the FDA with a focus on its antidepressant effects, which was thought to be a multi-billion-dollar venture. SAP's writing, in the United States, amongst a population of 200 to 220 million people, 60% are depressed. In recent years, SAPS came under fire for a stem cell scam, so I wouldn't be surprised if there was some dodgy work involved back then as well. But come 1977, Gerovital is still on the FDA naughty list, and Romamer is $200,000 in debt. Cue in Marvin Crater, a retired real estate man who came in to buy Romamer, determined to get the treatment over the approval line. He seemed to be driven by his personal experience with the treatment, which he encountered in Baden Baden, Germany, claiming, "Within 2 weeks, I came out of my depression. My wife took it too and had energy and pep she never had before." He discussed the drug with the man who performed his earlier heart surgery, Dr. Harold Fikes of Sunrise Hospital in Las Vegas. Dr. Fikes said he also tried the drug on his father, curing his tremors in 2 to 3 weeks. But there was also a lot of money on the table, so it's impossible to know what his real motivations were. What is certain is that Mr. Kramer had presented extensive medical evidence at assembly hearings to support the treatment's validity. One letter from Dr. Leonard Cohen, a psychiatrist from New York, described the double blind study with 40 people that he did on the effects of the drug in May 1975 to evaluate the efficacy and safety of this drug in the treatment of repressive disorders. His remarks support the basic hypothesis that there appear to be no significant side effects to the drug, which, they say, appears to be an effective antidepressant. Two other American doctors who conducted a separate independent study on the drug around the same time were Sidney Cohen and Keith Dittman in 1974. They concluded GH3 is safe and that 85% of the 41 subjects reported some improvements, albeit subjective ones, noting responses such as improved sleep time, increased energy, mood improved, hands and feet feeling warmer, improved memory, and thinking ability. Despite all of this, the FDA did not bend, and in the end, the GH3 was approved under a special state law only in Nevada, the state in which Mr. Crater, as well as various other key stakeholders in Roma Mer Pharmaceuticals, were based. The Nobel Prize winning economist Dr. Milton Friedman wrote in an article in Commitment magazine, "The drug industry is an example of an industry that has been seriously hampered by government intervention and regulation. The FDA has done more harm than good. The reason is very simple. No Food and Drug Administrator has ever been pilloried for not approving a drug which was potentially capable of saving many lives." "It's a question of freedom of choice," Crater said. "Why should the rich be the only people to get this drug because they're the only ones who can afford to go overseas for treatment?" FDA completely halted the imports of GH3 and banned it in 1982. However, in some recent years, there have been rumors of its reappearance on the American market since the internet provides a less governable environment and ease of accessing information and substances that go beyond approved lists. In the meantime, people were indeed paying quite a lot of money for health tours to Romania, staying at Ana Aslan's flagship institute as well as associated hospitals and facilities all around the country. Brochures from that time advertise 15 and 20-day stays, all including accommodation and transportation for around $1,000, which converts to over 7,000 today. Some famous names amongst those who could afford it were the Yugoslavian president Josip Tito, the USSR leader Nikita Khrushchev, the American president J.F. Kennedy, the French leader Charles de Gaulle, Indira Gandhi, India's prime minister, as well as actors Marlene Dietrich, Charlie Chaplin, Kirk Douglas, Lillian Gish, painter Salvador Dali, and many, many others. Besides the Jarvital treatment, patients benefited from a range of other wellness activities, such as mud therapy, mineral salt baths, physiotherapy, and nutritional advice. These additional influencing factors are quoted by those who doubt Jarvital's effects, attributing the reported improved states of being to the all-round complex of procedures. And perhaps that's the case, but it still seems like Ana Aslan managed to help a lot of people, and that's sort of the point. I believe that everything comes from the mind in the first place, and all medicine is to some degree placebo, which is why trust in doctors and that they know what they're doing matters so much. So, if suddenly a group of people, especially one that was disregarded previously by the existing medical system, starts feeling seen and cared for, and as a result of that, starts feeling better, then isn't that a good thing? Life expectancy in Romania before 1965 was under 70 for both men and women, and it starts increasing from there onwards slowly. Of course, there are many contributing factors to such a big statistic, but I think it's safe to conclude that there wasn't enough support in terms of geriatric care back then, because there still isn't enough now. Ana Aslan's was the first geriatric and gerontology institute in the world. Nowadays, we are flooded with ways people are desperately trying to stay young, with each method seemingly more extreme than the previous. And despite GH3 being called the grandmother of anti-aging medicine and getting these claims about being a youth elixir, Dr. Ana Aslan believed that to be young doesn't mean to be forever 20. It means to be optimistic, to feel good, to have a purpose in life you observe and work for, and that people don't die of old age, they die of illness. She said that her work was not only to add years to life, but also add life to years. And it's a point of view that I really resonate with because personally, I don't mind having visible signs of going through life, but I want to also take with me and keep my vitality, my ability to move, my cognitive function. I want to be able to read and write and dance when I'm older and really just live my life till the last day. Sure, charging a lot of money for it was questionably unethical, maybe. Reportedly, for foreigners, that amount was still more affordable than other rejuvenating treatments elsewhere. And I believe for locals, the cost was different for reasons that I will touch upon later. And again, it's not like they were not delivering results. From everything that I read, Anna Aslan seemed to really care about what she was doing. Yes, there were some accusations post mortem by a colleague of hers that as the clinic was getting more full with patients from abroad, reaching tens of thousands at its peak, she wasn't spending as much time personally with the Romanian patients. But it still feels like the overall benefits survive this controversy and everything else around her. And I feel like a lot of it wouldn't even be a thing if she was a man. And a few years ago, Romanian pensioners actually took to the streets to protect the outpatient clinic based in central Bucharest, part of Anna Aslan's Institute, from being transformed into a luxury hospital. This, as well as the original site, are really hot on the current real estate market, and their speculated sellout was actually the main working theory for the governmental neglect of these facilities that followed Anna Aslan's death in 1988. However, it seems like no ground was lost in the transfer of the estate from the Regia Autonomă Administrația Patrimoniului Protocolului de Stat, which is a financially autonomous body responsible for the management of the state heritage, to the Ministry of Health. This was seen as a positive move, and some renovation efforts have been shown since. Today, the Anna Aslan Institute has 334 beds across 4 geriatric sections with over 7,500 patients annually. They still offer the Anna Aslan treatment course that they recommend to be 2 weeks long, with 1 week also being an option. The price for this, as of 2010, when I estimate this document was created based on Viorel Oceana being the listed manager, the Yahoo email address, and some other factors, is 460 euros for the 2 weeks or 360 for the 1 week. For foreigners, the price of the stay, including free meals a day, ranges from 300 to 1,150 euros, depending on the length of the stay and the type of room. The Anna Aslan treatment consists of different ways of administering GH3 or Aslavital, which I haven't really mentioned before, but it's basically a more potent, updated version of GH3 that Anna Aslan developed alongside pharmacist Elena Polovrăgeanu and patented in some sources say 1980, but I found mentions of it in pamphlets dating earlier than that as well. Besides this, a recovery plan is recommended to be done in parallel. This includes 3 to 5 daily sessions of electro, kineto, or physiotherapy or massage based on the individual identified pathology. And they also offer purely aesthetic procedures such as scrubs, skin nourishment and hydration using special anti-aging products, muscle toning, and anticellulite treatments. These come at an additional cost, and all of these treatments are recommended as yearly procedures starting as early as 40 years of age for prophylactics, as Anna Aslan believed that old age is treated whilst one is still young. Unlike the name and the legacy, however, the Institute was not able to keep the GH3 patent, 90s Romania being a wild west when it came to copywriting laws and there being a lot of ignorance about it. So the product stayed in the portfolio of the factories that produced them during the communist era and then were transferred to the heritage of the private companies that took over. So the GH3 vials and tablets are now produced and distributed in Romania by Zentiva, a Czech company, part of Sanofi SA, a French multinational pharmaceutical and healthcare company. Nowadays, the name Gerovital is more widely associated with the extensive range of products from the largest cosmetic manufacturer in Romania, Farmec, meaning charm in Romanian. Back in 1967, when Anna Aslan's team decided to expand into creams, Farmec was one of the 2 companies that were employed to produce them, and is the one that managed to keep the license later on. Despite their products not including pyrocaine hydrochloride for many years now, the formula having been changed several times, including when Farmec was privatized, they still leverage Anna Aslan's name and the Gerovital H3 brand for a series of their products. I actually purchased a couple of things from this range for my acne and spots to test them out, and I was hoping that by the time I make this video I will be able to voice some type of conclusion, However, due to my travel, I have to admit that I haven't been as consistent as I probably should have been in order to have a fair assessment of them. When I do use them, my skin does seem to improve, but that could also be simply because of my generally better lifestyle when I'm here compared to the chaos of London. Because my mom's experience with the products that she got at the same time with me, based on a recommendation for her rosacea, wasn't too good, and she said it actually feels like her skin's gotten worse. And this is the story of this legendary Romanian medical invention, which seems to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. One of those things that you don't really know of until you do, and once you do, you wonder how come it's not more well known. My guess for why it's kind of tucked away is that it's due to the time in which it was developed that was a blessing in some ways and a curse in many others. The obsession with immortality of Nicolae and Elena Ceausescu, the infamous communist leaders of Romania at the time, grants a video of its own, and it did potentially aid the development of Dr. Aslan's initiative. But it also meant that the veil of secrecy specific to that time extended over it as well. Despite bringing millions of dollars to the country and even being accused by some of funding the communist regime, Ana Aslan was under constant surveillance from the secret services as well. Rumors go that she was deeply envied by Elena Ceausescu, who was also the country's director of science and technology. Disturbed by Dr. Aslan's popularity, especially after she was chosen as part of the Romanian Academy in 1974, Elena's spite materialized into Ana Aslan being prosecuted by the Communist Party, accused of not charging the elderly and the poor in her asylums and thus depriving the state of significant income. 1.5 million lei to be precise, all while bringing around $17 million to that state budget on a yearly basis. Statistics showing that 10% of foreign tourists were coming to Romania for her Gerovital treatments. The trials lasted 7 years, from 1981 to 1987. Ana won 5 months before her death. She passed away on 20th of May 1988 due to cardiac complications following a surgery for rectal cancer at the age of 91. Even then, Elena Ceausescu didn't allow for her last wishes to be granted, to have a priest present at her funeral and to be buried in the Calindero Danielopoulos crypt near her mentor and alleged lover. After her death, a relative of Elena Ceausescu moved into her home right away, and her goods were either confiscated or simply disappeared. I think it's safe to say that Ana still got the last laugh, though, considering Elena Ceausescu and her husband's demise and comparing their legacies. Dr. Aslan, with her lengthy list of titles and distinctions, amongst which the prestigious Leon Bernard Prize and Medal awarded by the World Health Organization in 1982. Her name was engraved on a plaque in Hippocrates Mausoleum, which is said to be a huge honor for doctors. But I couldn't really find any other mention of this plaque elsewhere outside of this context. What I could find, though, was multiple texts referring to her as a national hero and the woman that managed to defeat time. I also found multiple stamps, coins, and even a children's book about her. She famously said, "I generally live in the present and the future. I don't think about the past. I don't even remember the past. And I believe that another trait that helped me is that I have no regrets. That's how I have been in life, and that's how I am now. I have no regrets."
Nu regret nimic, nici lupta care am avut-o, nici că sunt singură. Nimic. Da, eu așa sunt, da.
This is a very different video to my other ones, so if you did get to this point, thank you, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments. What worked and what didn't. Honest feedback delivered kindly is always greatly appreciated. And let me know if there are any other topics you'd like me to explore, as I enjoy going down different rabbit holes and learning random things along the way. I know I'm not consistent enough yet to ask you to subscribe and wait for the next video, but if you decide to do that, know that it means a lot and it's a great motivator. Thank you, and till the next time.